So I was just dumping some wood, and I thought this would be a good time to go over the dump body and kind of the rear bed of the Unimog. So this is a U1450 right here, and it kind of has a pretty typical Unimog dump bed setup, and I thought I'd just kind of go over some of this for everybody. So here you've got kind of, obviously the dump is up, and you basically have three components to this. You've got a subframe called the spider, you've got the hydraulic cylinder, and you've got the bed itself. So this is a long bed. Some of the Unimogs with shorter wheelbases have shorter beds, but the principle is the same on virtually all Unimogs that have this kind of dump bed setup. So the first thing about this whole system is the subframe that the bed sits on, and this is sometimes called the spider. So this is the subframe here. You can kind of see it. It's got these outriggers, goes to the four corners. It's got this central area for the hydraulic cylinder, and it's mounted to the frame. So this is not part of the frame. This is its own kind of subframe, but it is mounted to the chassis of the truck in three places. So if you look here, it's mounted in the front on a pivoting axis, and then it's mounted here on the frame again. So this is the actual chassis from the Unimog, and this here is the mounting bracket for the subframe, and there's an identical one on the other side. So as with everything Unimog, this is triangulated, right? You've got one pivot point there, you've got two pivot points here that acts as a triangle. That prevents the stress, any stress from chassis flex being transmitted to the actual subframe, because again, if you have 3 points, you always have a plane. You can never warp it. So that's why triangulation is used on Unimogs, and that's used in this case on this subframe. So if you look at the subframe, it's got this kind of ball here, and there's a socket in the actual bed itself. So it's a kind of ball and socket setup. There are 4 balls. There's one in each corner. And then what you basically do with these ball and sockets is that determines how the bed is going to dump and how it's secured to the body or to the subframe. So you can see here, there's a pin in here. You can see I can kind of even move that around a little bit. There's a pin here, and there's a pin there. And when I put the pin in or out, basically what you have is you've got the socket comes down, it comes over here, and then the pin kind of goes right there. So the pin locks it in place, holds it, but it can still move around on this ball. So in this case, what we've got is a pin here and a pin in the other rear socket. And what that does is that allows this to dump back, just kind of like a traditional dump truck that just dumps out the back. However, what we can do is we can take the pin, obviously this comes down, you take that pin, and if we put the pin here, then when it comes up, it would dump to the side. And likewise, if we put the 2 pins over there, it would dump to that side. And we can use all 4 pins if we're on really rough terrain, you're on really uneven terrain, you've got a weird load in the back. If you put all 4 pins in place, then this dump bed is not just held in place by gravity, it's actually locked in place with the frame. So the next kind of obvious thing with this whole dump bed setup is the hydraulic cylinder, this ram or cylinder, and it's a multi-stage cylinder, as you can see, and it sits in a cradle, like a cardan cradle, which allows it to go in any direction. You can kind of see it's kind of hinged there, and it's hinged on the side. So this can do whatever it wants to do, and that's what allows you to kind of dump from, dump either side or dump backwards, because it's not fixed right here, it can dump off to the sides. So that's the other component to it. The bed itself is pretty stout, so it can support, quite a bit of weight. And it basically is just transferring the weight down to these four corners. The other thing to take into account is that not all Unimogs have the hydraulic cylinder. So most of the beds are all mounted this same way. They're on the spider, they're on this subframe. And if you don't have the hydraulics and you don't have the hydraulic ram, then this whole cardan is not installed. However, you can always retrofit that. That's not that hard to put this on. And it's fed by the hydraulic system from the truck. So this handle right here, this truck has 4 hydraulic circuits on it, and this uses 1 circuit. So when I put this lever here, the hydraulic for circuit number 3 in this case would operate this ram. If I pull this back, then it frees up that hydraulic circuit, and you can kind of see the hydraulic lines there. There are 3 circuits that go to the rear. So this would free up one of those 3 circuits. So you can kind of use it or not use it. It's up to you. Another feature of these longer wheelbase ones, and it's on some of the short wheelbase ones as well, is this handle right here engages and disengages this lower hinge right here. And what that does is, the way it's set up now, it's set up like a normal kind of, drop side tailgate. But if I pull this handle, then I disengage this lower hinge. And what you would do in that case is this top bracket becomes a hinge. So if you imagine this is closed, you can see there's kind of this tab on the end. So if this was closed and I disengage the bottom hinge, then this acts as the hinge, and the tailgate will swing this way instead, which is handy when you're doing gravel. You're doing dumping some different types of materials. You want it to hinge on the top. So it can hinge on the top or the bottom. That's not on all Unimogs, but that's a feature on these larger Unimogs. So that kind of gives everybody an idea of how this whole setup works. Again, one of the big benefits of this setup is by using this subframe, you're not transmitting any of the torsional stress to the actual dump body. And likewise, the dump body or the bed is not transmitting. If you have a weird weight distribution in the back, it's not transmitting anything down to the frame. They act independently. So that allows this vehicle, this Unimog, to really go over uneven terrain and not transmit or get bound up by the load. So again, I'll kind of just jump in here, show you how it works hydraulically. So this is my hydraulic circuit number 3. And basically, I'll put it into float mode. So basically, that's just dropping. And then you can see, the bed's just coming down. You can see the various stages on the hydraulic cylinder there. This bed also has a drop side. So, I can just unhinge this whole panel comes right off. It either comes down if you want it to just hang down, or you can remove it and turn this into a kind of conventional flatbed. It doesn't need to have the sides on it. So again, it's the same with this. If I just release that handle right now, this gets released, so you can again do a flatbed. As you can see, that's just coming down. And as that comes down, it's resting on the ball. If I wanted to secure this, I'd put a pin here. If I wanted it to dump sideways, I'd take a pin off the corner there, and it could dump any way I want. So that kind of gives an idea of the Unimog dump bed. I hope this was helpful.